So 14.35 is the green light, 14.35, and I think that could be to try and get Jared Clifford through to para qualification. There's a big field here, 27 in this B race, and I do believe we might have a pacer as well as the pace lights. And that's Baggett leading the way. Also Bibolo, we've got two pacers. So Jared has been accompanied here by Tim Logan. And they are, so Jared is being tethered. He's got his guide there and Tim Logan, both in the blue kits. And 14.35 being their target time. We can see Jared just sitting a little bit ahead of that. And Baggett leading the way at the moment. Also Bibolo jumping in to give something back in his own home track here at Box Hill. Saw him before in the 1,000 metre event.
Yeah, so he comes out and gets a little bit more out of his night that he can. You mentioned Jared Clifford, he is tethered there. And so Tim Logan has been with Jared Clifford for quite some time now. He was back there in those 2019 World Para Championships, and he's still here 5 years later as they try and get after it in Paris later in the year. I believe they might be swapping over to Matt Clark halfway through this race as well. So two very familiar tethered to Jared Clifford. So he's right behind there, Isaac Babile as well, out there pacing. Right behind him there is Curse. And the rest of this field now, Tim, they are strung out magnificently. In fact, there's a few out in lane number 2 towards the back end of the pack, but out in front, they're all strung out nicely. Yeah,
James Cruz is in the Essendon uniform, just sitting off the back there of both Clifford and Logan. Good position. He's an aggressive young man, Cruz. So this will be interesting to see how long he can last this journey, because he's well ahead of that 14, or is right on the 14.35 pace. And he comes in with a seed time of 14.55. So you can see the green light along their legs as they go through. The red light on that chase pack. You can see Johnny Portwood in amongst the action there in the chases. So a very good field here for the B race. Nick Earl sitting in that third pack at the moment. So good to see Nick back on Victorian territory. And he's back in the Melbourne University singlet.
So, love the representation of Tasmania. Had a few of them in the elites out here tonight. So the two pacemakers doing their job. Jared Clifford looking really comfortable. Cruz right behind him there. You mentioned as well, it's Alexander Angus, who's been pretty impressive over the summer series these past couple of years. So Angus up the track. And this big group, Tim, I'm not even going to bother to wager a guess on how many of them are in there, but I'm going to say 15 plus. As they make their way around. Tiemans had a very good kick towards the back end of 2023 in his summer racing, so watch out for him in the middle of it all, but they're just going to find their feet, find their pace, and they're doing that just nicely now. So this group out in front, Cruz not spotting an inch to Jared Clifford and Tim Logan out in front, and now I think they're going to attach Johnny Portwood in there as well.
Quick mental calculation, there's 18 of them. Make that 17 as one launches forward and goes alongside the South Australian there in Hudson Miles. So Pacemaker's just got a little bit of a break here. And we're seeing the guided runner there and Jared Clifford on the inside, tethered to Tim Logan to the outside, and they're moving beautifully with those pace lights. So Portwood's done a really good job of moving forward. He's also gone up with Alexander Angus, quite a young talent this one. Benny Ludbrook is in next position. Then we've also got there Morgan Wagner, fairly new to the scene. He went up and ran very well at the selection trial for the World Cross Country Champs up in Canberra not so long ago. So the young man from Melbourne University moving beautifully with Ludbrook just in front of him, coming alongside Portwood. And they're all getting into the green, so this is good to see. So the pace is still out by a little bit, a couple of metres separating Baggett to Bibile, Bibile then to Logan and Clifford. And then we have a procession, Cruz, then Angus, Portwood, Ludbrook, Wagner.
So it's a well-formed peloton there in the second part. They've let the lead group go up, and whether or not they can get back to them will be decided later in this 5,000 metres. Attention to the top of it, though. It's now just Babile out in front, the lone pacemaker. So he's going to lead out Clifford. He's just going to latch himself right onto the back of him. It'll be very familiar. So he wants to try and drag him through as easily as he can for as long as he can. Clifford, he's right there, right behind him there. Cruz still moving through really nicely as this pack behind him there as they now just all live within the green zone, which is what we want to see. Alexander Angus it is, Johnny Portwood, then back to Ludbrook, who's been also impressive, Tim, it should be said, over this summer season. Now Nick Earl gets towards the front of it. I think they've got a pacemaker for this second group as well. A big contingent of juniors amongst seniors, so widespread across it here.
Yeah, so Chris Dale taking the pacing duties. He's got Nick Earl just to the outside of him. So Dale doing a good job. He's in the blue T-shirt and he's pacing that second group. So I'm not exactly sure what schedule they're on, but they're approaching the 2 kilometre mark, so we'll get a really good idea as they go through. So this group is going to be going through in 5:50, and it looks like we might have, it must be maybe a 15-minute pack here as they go through just under the 6-minute mark. So they're just under the 3-minute kilometre pace with Chris Dale doing the pacing job out there. So Bibble just having a look around the shoulder. You'll see that they've still got that group behind him, and it is Logan and Clifford leading the way. They're on the green. So Isaac just starting to drift back into them a little bit. Wagner sitting there behind Cruz. So Cruz, the big question to be asked here now, because the young man went out very aggressively, and they've had a couple of the more experienced runners, including Port, would start to come through.
So, Tim, Clifford notoriously a very good finisher as well, it should be said. So as he starts to drift towards the back of that green, don't be too alarmed because he'll be able to find some form late in this 5,000 metres. So Clifford it is, still leading out from there, tucked in really nicely as well. He's done well to put himself in this position as the man from Sandringham, and Johnny Portwood behind him there, Ludbrook, and now starting to just drift off ever so slightly is Wagner, and a little bit further back there is Cruz. So this group out in front seemingly finding some really nice rhythm just on the back of the green, so just off the pace, but still moving through very nicely. Cruz now is going to find himself in a little bit of no man's land. They're going to be brought up here by Christopher Dale. Even this pack now starting to be fractured and separated ever so slightly right in the middle of it. So it was a big one of 17 to 20. Now it's going to be a group of about 7 or 8 maybe by the time they make their way through here and all adjust to the newly renewed pace. So Isaac Babile takes a check on his inside shoulder, makes sure everybody's right around it, slowly starting to drift off this desired pace, but Jared Clifford and Tim Logan looking really comfortable and tucked in right behind there. Alexander Angus, he can sense that he needs to keep on moving.
So Dale's got Bevan Doze with him. He's in the new Frankston uniform. Bunnage just not far off the back. And then we drift back and we do have Nick Lukes and also Matt Venner in that next chase pack. So they're starting to divide into different packs now, Mitch, as we're getting in towards that 3rd kilometre.
The dreaded 3rd to 4th kilometre, Tim. We've spoken about it so much, but this group out in front is going to make it look really easy. They're going to do that because they've run this so many times. Some real experience in this front group, it must be said. Obviously, Paralympian, Para-World Champ competitor, multiple-time world record holder in Jared Clifford. He knows exactly what he's doing. What a beautiful transition. We didn't even notice that he's changed over guides. Matty Clark now steps in for this remaining part of the 5,000 metres. So Matty Clark, Tokyo Olympian in the steeplechase. He was helping Jared Clifford before that pursuit of his own Olympic dream, and now he finds himself back tethered to one of the best we've ever seen. So Jared Clifford it is on out in front. Looking really smooth behind there is still Alexander Angus. He hasn't spotted them anything. Johnny Portwood as well, running a really smart race on that railing. Doesn't have to think too much. Won't have to move too far out unless he wants to make one. And the only man who's going to go with them now is Wagner Ludbrook as well. Looking really smooth.
Yeah, so that pack's working, but as you see, the 14:35 is just drifting away from them. Bunnage has now made a bit of a move, got away from Doze. Earl's now coming alongside Cruz. Near Regira, the marathoner from the Doncaster Club. He's looking good in that next pack. I think he might have McLeod right on his hammer as they go around.
So Clifford and Clark still leading it out here from Alexander Angus. He's just under the 15-minute marker as Angus, according to his time. So he's well on a PB, if that is in fact true. He's just going to stalk Jared Clifford. Every move he makes, he's going to be right there. He will shadow him all the way through to the end, or as long as he possibly can. Johnny Portwood now just sitting there, moving through really nicely. Been a really smart race from Wagner. He now just moves up onto the shoulder of Doncaster's Portwood. So they're starting to make it quicker now. You can see the pace ever so slightly picking up. They're just going to miss this pace light that you can see chasing up the little caterpillar you see up the home straight. They're not going to be able to chase this one home to the finish. But at the moment, Jared Clifford, Matt Clark, they've got Wagner on their shoulder. They've got Angus behind them there. Portwood not done with that. Ludbrook as well, as we see Bunnage break away from that second pack. Finds himself by himself, but finds himself in a unique position to maybe move on up to that front pack if you can get there.
Yeah, but don't be surprised if Nia Regira and also McLeod start to make their way through as well. They're working very well together. Patton now alongside Earl, so that group is starting to sort of fracture. Bryant's now made a good move through as well. So great to see so many interstaters in this event. Dale's just drifting back through now. But no change out front, Mitch. Still the same.
So still Clifford and Clark leading it out. Also Angus, he hasn't moved. I said he's going to shadow them. He literally has not moved an inch from these two out in front. So he's been right there the whole way through. Maybe Cruz was the only one who's been able to separate him. But ever since Cruz dropped out of that pack, it's been all Angus. Behind him there, moving is Johnny Portwood. Outside shoulder, Wagner. He's been able to find himself one out, one back in a really good position. Bunnage now is going to be joined here by J-Mac and Co. This two duo, as you mentioned, Tim, moving through really nicely. Obviously, McLeod on the back of that doesn't have to do all that much. He can just follow along Nagira. But these two become three. Bunnage has company. Ludbrook now needs to hold on to this front pack because they're starting to go again.
They are 3 laps to go now. We're seeing quite a few moves. Patton's now moved to the front of the next bunch. He's also got Tiemans going with him. Venner's on the rails there. Doe's also sitting on the rails. Bryant in next position. And then we have Hudson Miles, the South Australian. But out front, no real changes, but we are seeing a few questions being asked, and Portwood starting to drop. Ludbrook already off the back of that pack. Nia Regira and also McLeod starting to move up nicely, and they are taking Bunnage with them.
So Nia Regira and McLeod are really interesting. They've been able to find themselves from this third, fourth pack and really work their way through the middle stages of this race. Bunnage needs to try and attach himself to J-Mac if he can, but it's a hard task. He's following Nagira, who's doing such a good job at setting the pace. He might even pick up Ludbrook here, who's fallen off the back of Johnny Portwood, who is on the back of this leading pack. So Jared Clifford's been out in front the whole way through, outside of the pacemakers, obviously. Wagner now out into lane number 2, has no issues in going as wide as he needs to be able to get around them, and he's been spotted, and now he will be the hunted. So Wagner out in front of Clifford, right behind him there Angus, Portwood as well. Ludbrook about to be picked up by Nagira. McLeod now, Bunnage, and then about 50 metres to this next pack with Nick Earl in it, who we know can fly very late, Tim, if he gets the momentum with him. But they're all chasing, and Wagner, the new race leader.
So the pace really starting to kick down now. I wouldn't be surprised if they start to draw in the lights a little bit more. But Wagner, very impressive here. As I said, he ran a very good race at the cross-country trials up in Canberra. So he's got the 10K distance in him, Mitch. He knows how to run out long. And Wagner looking really good as they start to move away now, as we see Clark and also Clifford now into that 3-4 position, and Portwood just now into the 5th position. So Angus, though, what do you say about the young man from Sandringham? He's just hanging on for dear life here, but he's looking good.
I think he wants to wait to the right moment to get to the front. Does Alexander Angus? He has just been absolutely shadowing anybody who's a step ahead of him. And right now it's Wagner. So Wagner out in front. He made the move 400 metres ago. Now goes to Angus. Now goes to Clifford. So he's going to have to find a little bit of something here. 13.33 it is. Clark edging him on there. Next up is Portwood. Nagira has come up the track. Ludbrook to McLeod. And then a little bit further back to Bunnage. But it's the front of the race that's interesting. And Jared Clifford, Tim, he's latching himself right back on for the kick.
He certainly is, but now we see Angus taking his chance. I think you picked that perfectly, Mitch. He didn't want to do the work until he really had to, and now we're seeing Alexander Angus, the young man from Sandringham, striding beautifully. I don't think the rest can really chase him down from here. Wagner's done well to get into this position, but as I said, they're chasing the lights down. That 14.35 still a chance, as we're seeing the Angus just go up a gear or 2 or 3. So this is big running here from Angus. Let's get behind him. What a big run. They were well behind the lights, but look at this. We're seeing Alexander Angus absolutely put on a show.
So Alexander Angus it is. He's in front of the pacing lights now. He needs to move on out to lane 3. Alexander Angus, he's chasing it. He's got it. 14.34. Clifford now 14.36. Wagner just under the 14.40. Nagira, Portwood, as well as McLeod, Bunnage, they're all starting to fly now. He'll go under 14.46. Johnny Portwood under the 14.50. And the rest of them under as well. 14.51. A big, big group. Tiemans might be the cutoff here for the sub 15. Maybe not. 2 more under. Impressive racing there.
So Sue McFarlane coming through now. Also on the inside there, Grant Williams from Queensland. Doze just through. Now we're seeing Cruz, who was up there early with the leaders. James Cruz, very young runner. Hudson Miles, another one of the early leaders coming through there as well. Next one through, Sammy Alberson from Mentone. 15:30 on the clock, then Kybird. Jack Hynam coming through now. And Nick Lukey's coming through, and I think that does conclude our men's B 5,000 metres.